Can Putin win? A Russian attack is expected in Donbass, but everything depends on whether Russia eliminates serious logistical and coordination flaws. They allege Russia's ally Bashar al-Assad's use of chemical weapons in Syria and discussed how far Russia is willing to go. Success in Syria will require the use of barbaric methods, just as the United States did. Abu Ghraib prison, Iraq. I am a former KGB agent, he explained. The comments were clearly half joking, but as always with Russian leaders, the threat was clear. And, of course, Putin has demonstrated that he is willing to use fear as a weapon in his attempts to conquer rebellious Ukraine. His troops attacked civilians and resorted to torture and rape, but victory eluded him. Over the next few weeks, he appeared ready to rectify his military failures with an offensive at the end of the winter. It is very likely that he will become even more fearsome and fight tooth and nail to save Russia and himself from further humiliation. But will the former KGB officer succeed? Can Russia win the war against Putin's chosen Ukraine in the face of a heroic, united Ukrainian resistance? From the beginning, the war was marked by miscalculations and miscalculations. Putin and his generals underestimated Ukrainian resistance, overrated the abilities of their own forces, and failed to foresee the scale of military and economic support Ukraine would receive from the United States and European nations. Kyiv didn't fall in a matter of days, as planned by the Kremlin, and Putin's forces in the summer and autumn were pushed back, with Ukraine reclaiming by November more than half the territory the Russians captured in the first few weeks of the invasion. Russia has now been forced into a costly and protracted conventional war, one that sparked rare dissent within the country's political-military establishment and led Kremlin infighting to spill into the open. The only victory Russian forces have recorded in months came in January when the Ukrainians withdrew from the salt mining town of Soledar in the Donetsk region of eastern Ukraine. And the signs are that the Russians are on the brink of another win with Bakhmut, just 6 miles southwest of Soledar, which is likely to fall into their hands shortly. But neither of these blood-drenched victories amounts to much more than a symbolic success despite the high casualties likely suffered by both sides. Tactically, neither win is significant, and some Western officials privately say Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky may have been better advised to have withdrawn earlier from Soledar and from Bakhmut now, in much the same way the Russians in November beat a retreat from their militarily hopeless position at Kherson. For a real reversal of Russia's military fortunes, Putin will be banking in the coming weeks on his forces, replenished by mobilized reservists and conscripts, pulling off a major new offensive. Ukrainian officials expect the offensive to come in earnest sooner than spring. Ukrainian Defense Minister Alexei Reznikov warned in press conferences in the past few days that Russia may well have as many as 500,000 troops amassed in occupied Ukraine and along the borders in reserve ready for an attack. It is said that it can start in earnest this month, around the first anniversary of the war on February 24. Other Ukrainian officials believe it will be in March when the offensive begins, but at least before the arrival of the Leopard 2 and other Western main battle tanks. Infantry fighting vehicle. Zelensky warned Ukrainians on Saturday that Ukraine was entering a period in which the occupiers are committing more and more troops to break through our defenses.